So you're thinking about unraveling a sweater for yarn. Is it worth it? Is it worth your time? Is it worth the effort? Why would I bother? What are the reasons for doing this when I could just go out and buy some yarn? Even buy some really cheap yarn, some acrylic. Why would I think to go to a thrift store, do all that work, and then maybe have yarn I can knit with? Well, I wanted to try and see if I could talk you into it. Or maybe you're on the edge and this is just a little nudge that you need. I feel like it's really important to have this discussion in the fiber community because we're in a world with so much consumption, and really our yarn consumption does contribute to that, even if it is slow fashion. How can we make it even slower, I guess is what I'm saying. So I have three big reasons why you should give this a shot, and I'm gonna go through each of them a little bit, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. My first big reason should probably be a little obvious, which is cost. Well, not every fiber is super expensive. You can go get some pretty cheap acrylic at the store. It still comes with a price that not everyone can really afford from day to day. And I thought I'd break this down, starting with how much it will cost to knit a basic Aran weight sweater. No cables, no color work, nothing fancy, super simple. Like this that I'm wearing right now, the Novice Sweater by Petite Knit, which is the example that I used. This pattern is available in 5XL to extra small. So there's a pretty good range. And I priced these all for that size range, how much it would cost to knit from the smallest size to the largest size. And it's all in USD because I live in the US. The lowest tier yarn that is still wool, something that is pretty easily accessible to most, is Drops Alaska. To knit this sweater in Drops Alaska, it'll cost you between $16.80 and $31.20. Not too bad. The mid-tier yarn, which is one of the recommended yarns on the pattern, is Sinus-Garn Coast. That will cost you from $98 to $182 to knit this sweater. And the higher tier yarn is Hedgehog Fibers, which is a superwash wool that is hand-dyed, really beautiful. And that would cost you between $136 and $238 to knit this sweater. So that's quite the range. And obviously, the higher tier yarns are very unrealistic for the average person. These are all also not including any kind of mohair you may want to hold with the yarn, or even higher tier yarns like cashmere and all the others that are out there. There's alpaca and angora and so many other options. But realistically, the lowest tier of this is $16.80 to $31.20. That doesn't seem outrageous, does it? I mean, you can go to the store and buy a sweater for about the same amount. But the point of this is the joy and the entertainment of knitting a sweater. And for a simple sweater like this, it might take some people longer. There's no shame in that, or it might really only take you a couple days. And $16 to $17 to $30, if you're only taking a couple days and it's only a couple days of entertainment you get out of it, can be a pretty high price for a hobby. Because in the end, it's not really a necessity. We're not knitting clothes at this point, really, because we need them. We can go to the store and buy them. That is something that's feasible for most of us. And as we can see, in many cases, it is lower cost. So why would unraveling a sweater change that for me? Well, I think it's realistic to spend about $5 to $10 on buying a sweater at the thrift store to unravel. I wouldn't really generally spend more than that because you never know what happens in the unraveling process. And that is a huge jump in price. I mean, say you're only spending $17 on the yarn to begin with. That's also not including any potential sales or shipping or taxes. So it could be a little higher, could be a little lower. $5 is a big jump. For me, that's a lot more realistic. I don't always have the money to go just spend $30 on whatever sweater project I want, but $5 is something I can wrap my mind around a little bit more. And it gives me a lot more access to fibers I would otherwise never be able to afford. Cashmere, for instance, and I believe this has some angora and some other things in it because this is made of sweater yarn. I think it's a great way to make fibers of higher quality more accessible to anyone. Obviously, you can go unravel an acrylic sweater if you want, and I've done that for sure. Cotton, linen, all of it. I mean, there's no limit to what you can do, but I think it's a really great way for people to try new and fun things without getting into really high costs. There are some really fun acrylic sweaters out there that look very artsy and cool that absolutely, if bought in a commercial sense, would still be a lot more expensive than buying them as a sweater. But I think it's a great way for making all of this yarn more accessible to the average person. It might take a little bit of time, but for me, that price is worth it. The second one is environmental impact. Obviously, we all know, I think, at this point that a lot of things that make it into the thrift store don't necessarily make it out. They may find a loving, amazing home. They may get worn over and over and over again, or they may get bought, worn once, and brought back, or they may just get thrown away entirely. You don't really know what's going to happen. And I think anything we can do to take things out of those stores and repurpose them and give them new life, whether it's just wearing them again or whether it's turning them into something else, is a really awesome contribution. There's so many styles in the thrift store too that, while maybe there's a niche person that might like it, aren't really what's in per se. Not that I believe really in trends and all the micro trends, but they're not a classic basic staple that you can wear day to day. This sweater, for example, was a very odd Y2K sweater. I'm sure there's some girly out there that could make it and style it beautifully and amazingly, but realistically, what are you gonna wear one of those long skinny cardigans from the early 2000s for? Like, how many times are you actually gonna be wearing that? It had a belt and everything. It was horrendous in my opinion, but I unraveled it, and what do I have now? A super basic, simple sweater that I will have for many years. I very highly doubt I will get rid of it, and if I do, it'll probably go to someone I know. And if it went back into a thrift store, God forbid, someday, I have a feeling that this would be a lot more likely to get picked up by someone as a basic staple in their wardrobe than a funky Y2K sweater that probably wasn't making it anywhere. So I think it's a great way to give new life to things that maybe aren't in right now, aren't a great style, and making them into something really beautiful and really high quality. My third reason is kind of one of my favorite reasons, and that's creativity. For me, unraveling sweater yarns is so much fun. It's like, you never know what you're gonna get. You do, like, you can see the color, but you could always dye it. You can see the style that it's in now, but you can make it something different. Fibers might look like one thing in the sweater and they look like something totally different out. I think there's so much fun opportunity. You never know exactly how much yarn you're getting, so what pattern you can make will shift. And I think it's so much fun to figure out how to make something that looked totally different at one point into something you really, really love. And part of that is also that I find that the yarn is a lot less precious to me. Not that I don't value it for what it is and what I can turn it into, but rather than spending like $100 on a bunch of skeins of yarn for a project and being really nervous and I'm going to mess it up, and cutting the yarn kind of makes you a little scared and all of that, or it just sits on a shelf and you look at it thinking about, oh, what can I do with this yarn? It was so much money. I want to make it something worth it. What you get is a yarn that you put some time and effort into, but you didn't really spend that much money on. You have a lot more, I feel like, internal freedom about what you're gonna pick to do. I don't get as scared. I don't get as nervous because I already chopped up this sweater. I mean, what am I gonna do? Unravel it again? Oh no, God forbid. So I think that gives you a lot more freedom, and it's a lot more fun, in my opinion, to work with yarns in that way. But yeah, those are my 3 big reasons. I hope maybe I convinced you to give it a shot. And if you look out, I will be putting up another video soon about what to look for in a sweater that you're unraveling. Thank you so much for joining. If you enjoyed this, please give me a like and a subscribe. And I hope you have a great day.